Hello mga katito, this is Japes Terrific and welcome to my channel. If you are interested in getting more of these videos, please click subscribe and the notification bell so that you will be updated with future videos from my channel. So, Thai BL fans out there, I hope you were able to catch the final or the last episode of Together, which was aired last night over GMM TV, and of course from YouTube. You could have watched it live or delayed as it was streamed on YouTube. So for my post, for this post, I will be going through the whole series. I decided last minute not to review episode per episode. Initially that was what my plan was, but I felt that it would be better if I just review it as a whole, as a series, and give my final thoughts on Together. So let's begin our review. Now, in order for us to understand Together all the more, let's go over the synopsis of the series. The series, not just one episode. But basically, Together revolves around the story of Tine and Sarawat. Tine was a very handsome student and was a part of the cheerleaders in college, while Sarawat is one of the campus most popular guys and is also playing soccer and is part of the music club. Now, when Tine was being chased by Green, who does not Green was gay, and Tine did not reciprocate the feelings that Green had for him. So what happened was Tine sought advice from his friends on what to do so that he could basically remove Green out of the system, or remove Green from chasing him. So his friends gave him some advice. One was to have a fake girlfriend, since Tine at that time was not attached. Second was to give Green like a knockout drug or some sort. And third, which eventually Tine did, was to look for a fake boyfriend so that he could ward off Tine. Cut to the chase, what happened was he started to pursue Sarawat, who was very popular, upon the advice of his friends. So Tine went out and pulled out all the stops just to get Sarawat to agree for him to be his fake boyfriend, which eventually Sarawat did, and that's where the story begins. Tine was doing a lot of things to get close to Sarawat, including joining the music club, even if he didn't know how to play any musical instrument. In the end, he started playing the guitar, and Sarawat was one of the people who actually taught him. And that started the whole a whole slew of episodes or scenes where Sarawat and Tine were trying to fake being a couple, but what Tine didn't know was that Sarawat was really flirting with him for real. Eventually, Sarawat did mention to Tine that he wanted to flirt with him for real, and he wanted to have, you know, some sort of a relationship because he liked him. And on episode 7, that was when Sarawat really mentioned to Tine that he really liked him, and it ended with a kiss. Fast forward until episode 8 or 9. Tine's friends were trying to make Tine realize, you know, what really he wants. So they were trying to get Tine away from Sarawat, even to the point that they tried to get a girl to go to Tine's dorms to study, but Sarawat wanted to support Tine wanted to support Sarawat in his football match, where there was a bet eventually, and that led to other scenes like them being beaten by a gang, Tine spending the night at Sarawat's place, and basically, just to cut the story short, it was basically Tine developing feelings for Sarawat until finally he said yes to Sarawat in episode 10. Episode 11 showed Sarawat's version of how he actually fell in love with Tine. And that was the year before they became college, or they met in college. Apparently, Sarawat already met Tine in a scrub concert when they were in senior high school. And ever since then, Sarawat's heart had Tine all along. And he even composed a song for Tine. Fast forward to episode 12, that was when Sarawat's first love, Pam, came into the picture. That started the conflict. Episode 12 ended with Tine crying profusely in the stairwell. And then, of course, last night's episode when Tine broke up with Sarawat. But ultimately, at the end, they got back together. Sarawat's band won the band competition, and everything was happy. That's Together, in a nutshell, the synopsis. Now let's move on to my review of the series as a whole. This is the first ever Thai BL series that I watched. I have watched, now that we're talking and as I'm filming this, I have already watched a few other series from Thailand of a BL theme, and I have to say that there are other series that are better in terms of the storyline. They're better than Together. But what makes Together very special to me is that on a personal note, since this is the first, okay, let's rewind a bit. I don't usually watch foreign language series. I don't mind watching foreign language film because it's just a few hours or a few minutes of your time. But in watching Thai BL, and I have nothing against Thais or Thailand in general, because in fact I love Thailand, and I think Thai culture is a very nice and beautiful culture. I also like the personality of a lot of Thai people, and how open they are and how liberated they are and how embracing they are of the LGBTQ community. So anyway, back to my story. As you all know, because of the pandemic, a lot of the countries nowadays are in lockdown. The Philippines is one of them. In fact, as I am filming it, this is our second month in being in isolation. And I happened to come across this series just this March. So I had to do a lot of back watching of past episodes before I got into track with the more current ones. So it was during a time when I was actually isolated here in my room for 2 weeks that I discovered Together, because I contracted cough early on during the lockdown here in the Philippines, and my family being safe, I was told, maybe I should isolate myself and put myself into quarantine in my room for 2 weeks. And I was just here in my room. They were bringing me food. If they had to bring me food, they even wore masks and everything. And they treated me as if I was a PUI, even if I'm not. Eventually, that cough was only a week, and it only took me like 2 days of cough, and then I was okay. So we guess that it was more allergies, because I did some spring cleaning before the cough, so maybe it was the dust. So that's just the personal part of it. That was also during the time that I was getting bored. I was doing work from home because I work in the BPO industry in recruitment and talent delivery, and I was doing work from home, but of course, I need to do something also, because not everything on TV is nice to watch, and I didn't want to consume myself watching a lot of negative things and news because of the pandemic. So I sought advice from some of my friends, and some of them said, why don't you try watching Thai BLs? And I said, okay. I was really half-hearted doing it because I'm not really the type who likes to watch foreign language series because my eyes get tired easily from reading all the subtitles. I don't like to watch it when it's dubbed. Let's say, for example, the Korean dramas that are sometimes shown here in the Philippines, they dub it in Tagalog, and I just don't like it because the dubbers don't necessarily get the actual emotion of the actors, and I don't know, I just find it really, really weird. So I was half-hearted doing that, and they gave me a list of what to watch, and I didn't really follow the list. I just, I actually lost the list, and so I was browsing through YouTube, and that's when, the first thing that I remember was Together. So I typed Together, and that's how I started it. And once I started watching it, I got hooked. Like really, really, really hooked. And mainly because it's the first series that I watched that I could really relate myself with in terms of what happened in my life. Not just my life as a whole, but even, the relationships that I have formed, my friends, and so on. So I was able to relate with it, and it made me happy. And like what I said, it came during a time when I was in isolation here, and I was really getting sad and depressed because of my isolation, and I was having some anxiety attacks because here in the Philippines, everything was unsure. We didn't know what's going to happen. We had to wait a week every week for new announcements, and it's hard when your entire life is placed on another person's hand and you don't know what's going to happen. So I was getting depressed. I was getting anxiety attacks, and that's why I started doing things that I felt would be therapeutic. And I'm doing, I still am doing a little bit of art, and now I'm starting a channel because I didn't really think of doing this before. And so I watched Together, and I liked it. I liked the fact that this was a series that I could relate with, because we don't have this type of theme in the Philippines. We did have one before, My Husband's Lover, but that was more of a darker side, and it dealt more with the stereotypical how the LGBTQ community is perceived here in the Philippines. But here was something that was aspirational, if you want to call it that way. And one of the things that I like about how this was written, and I know that it's based from a novel, was that the level of acceptance of Tine's friends, even if, they were a group of people who'd like to chase girls, or, try to look for girls and try to hook up dates and whatnot. I mean, ultimately when Tine decided that, he liked Sarawat, they were very understanding. Something that, although my friends are like that, and all the other friends I'm sure are like that, but it's not as if it's a common thing in the Philippines. It's plain and simple, sadly. And I like that. I like that about the whole series. It was light. It wasn't saccharine. It wasn't juvenile, but it was something that was relatable, and that's what I liked about it. Well, that's one of the things that I liked about it. Talking about what I like, let's talk about the things that I like about the entire series Together. So now let's talk about the good about Together. One of the things that's really catchy with the series is the music that was used for the entire duration of the series. The opening billboard, I don't know the title. See, I'm not really good at this one, but I forgot the title, but the opening number or the opening music was really, really catchy. It's my LSS, or Last Song Syndrome. I've been humming it for the past how many days now. And some of the songs that were used within the storyline was just catchy. It was, I think it was apt for the age group of the characters. It was apt for the age group of the target audience. It was something that you would really want to sing. Problem is I don't know Thai, and I'm actually going to do, because of this, I'm inspired to learn how to speak Thai, or at least understand the Thai language, so that I could watch future series and movies in Thailand, not just BL, in general, and I could watch it and understand it without necessarily looking at the subtitles. That's how hooked I am at this point. Yeah. So the music was nice. I liked the music. The casting, I think, was a good mix. First of all, going back to the music, I heard that some of the scrub music, like Everything, is really popular right now here in the Philippines. It's trending, and that's nice to see because, apart from the original Filipino music and Western music, it's nice to see that a fellow neighbor from the Southeast Asian countries is actually doing good in the Philippines, considering that the Philippines is not as oriental, if you know what I mean. It's not as oriental as the other Asian countries or the other ASEAN countries, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, because the Philippines is more Western in the sense because we were once colonized by Spain and the United States, so that pretty much is the hodgepodge of our identity. But I like the fact that the music is so refreshing to listen to. It's very catchy. I don't think that it just zeroes in on a particular age demographic, but as a whole, because I'm in my 40s and I like it. Isa akong tito, kayang-kaya to. Second would be the characters. The actors who portrayed the characters in this series are notable. I think what made it very popular, and correct me if I'm wrong, for my friends in Thailand and all over the world, I think this is one of the highest rating series right now in Thailand, and I would understand why. One, remember that it's the pandemic, so a lot of people are at home. Why it became popular here in the Philippines? That's one reason. Because of the pandemic, because of the lockdown, everybody's at home. People are now trying to experiment, going through different types of cultures and watching different types of shows. And that is good. We get to learn culture. We get to learn about other countries. And that is why I've started watching this. So actually, apart from this, while I was watching Together, I was also watching a few other series. Together was the first. And then I also watched Cause You're My Boy, Farn Type, Sotu, Sotus S, Our Sky. I've watched those. And you can see the culture of Thailand within those series. So it's very relatable, I know, for them, but it also is relatable for someone like me. One good thing about it, what I like about it being in, a Thai series is you can relate not only to the storyline and the plot, but also you can, it's nice to watch a series where the actors look like me, look like, that I could be living in that country, or they could be living in my country, and we would blend in terms of how we look, and that's different because, you watch Korean dramas, you watch Korean episodes, and yeah, the stories are nice, the execution is nice, but then there's that essence, I don't look like them. It's still not as relatable as I think it would be. But in terms of this one, I could relate. I mean, here in the Philippines, most universities, you have to wear uniforms. There you have it. That's one example. But let's go back to the actors. I think they did a good job in casting. Okay, let's just put it this way. This is a half-half thing. Good job because I think they got actors that are very, very, very attractive. Very attractive. I mean, you look at Bright who plays Sarawat. I mean, look at those lips. I mean, isn't that lips the lips you want to kiss? Like, really. I'm just being realistic. Not because I'm LGBTQ, but, if you were a girl, you want to kiss Bright. If you were a guy who's into guys, you want to kiss Bright too. I mean, that was really... I think casting him as Sarawat, which is... I'm not going to say that Sarawat's character was very jaded, but, very, very controlled. And then, he has this, mysterious... I think Bright's face is the perfect face for Sarawat. I could not imagine any other person playing Sarawat at this point. Casting Tine also was, I think, the perfect selection. I think one of the revelations of this series is Metawin, who played Tine. I mean, this was his first acting job. First acting job. And he was able to pull it off. I think he did an effective way of acting, showing the vulnerable side of Tine, and then you see that the character of Tine being swept off his feet. That facial expression when he smiles at, when Sarawat would tell him something and that's flattering and so on. That was really effective. And those simple gestures of the face, how he smiled, how he smirked, the eyes, that was effective, in my opinion. But at the same time, there were some, I think there were some, maybe they could have thought more about casting, let's say, for example, Type, who played the older brother of Tine. Yes, he does look a little older than Tine, but, they don't look like brothers at all. You know what I mean? They don't look like brothers. I think casting Green was perfect, on point, and awesome. I think the highlight of Green for me wasn't so much about him chasing after Tine, but that small scene in the woods near the shrine when Tine got shocked and surprised with how Green looked like, because he looked like Sadako. That for me was genius. I love it. The friends, I think they were correctly casted. And all the other cast members. I think, for the most part, everything else, that was good casting there. They were able to get actors that could effectively play their character to a certain degree. I'll talk about that later on when we talk about chemistry. But talking about the things that I like about it, the casting was good. For the most part, the storyline was good, especially episodes 1 to 9 for me. I think episodes 1 to 9 was the meat of the series, because it showed the progression from, hey, can you be my fake date, to I'm going to really date you and I really like you. And because that's where you see the whole different levels of flirting, courtship, and we call it in the Philippines kilig factor. Kilig meaning, the feeling of giddiness when you have a crush and so on. And that's what episodes 1 to 9 represented. And I think that's one of the reasons why this series was just immensely popular to a mixed crowd, because of that. And I actually like one interview that Metawin gave, when he said that, the story is not just about boy love. It's about love in general, because love has no gender. And I get it. In the whole series, you will feel, especially, again, episodes 1 to 9, you will feel the feeling of love and, liking each other in those episodes. Episodes 10 to 13, that's a totally different story. I'll say that in the next segment of this particular post. Yeah. What are other things that I like about this? I think that's it. this storyline, the script. I think the script, there were some really wonderful, memorable lines. Still, my all-time favorite line in the series is, you must have seen the Sarawat Expo. That's nice writing right there, because I would have never thought to use the term Sarawat Expo if I was going to write that. That's good. That's good. Good job to the writer. Again, for the most part. So now let's go to the next part of this review. In the next part of this review now, we'll talk about, maybe areas of opportunity that, the production team may have overlooked. One is consistency. Consistency in terms of styling and so on. Notice that in some of the scenes when they were shooting, or when they were showing scenes in the loft, in the dorm where Sarawat and Tine live, Bright's hair was longer, and then cut to a scene in school, it was shorter. And that's very understandable, because when people film series, even in movies, when they film movies and series and they film scenes, they don't usually do it according to chronological order of how the scene should go. Let's say scene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes they shoot on the first day scene 67 and scene 3 and so on, because they have to make do with the time that they have in the setting or the set. But that was just some of very, very minor thing. One thing that could have been better would be also in terms of writing. Like what I said, and I have mentioned in the previous segment of this post, episodes 1 to 9 would have to be the highlight of the film. Episode 10, that's the episode when finally they became formally official. That, I just burped. You know that burp that you... Yeah. Anywho. Episode 10 was when they became officially a couple, and that for me was the start of how the series fell flat. I guess it's because the kilig factor wasn't there anymore, because they were already together. So what could have been done was give a series where they're more sweet towards each other, because that was what the audience was expecting. Instead, there wasn't even any kissing scene. Not that there should be, but moments of tenderness and so on, because that wasn't always the case. What was a little bit of what's the word I'm thinking of so that it don't sound really rude, but what I really didn't like was the action, or the dynamics between Sarawat and Tine from episode 10 until episode 13. I mean, you're a couple. It's okay if you guys kiss. It's okay if you guys hug. And yet there was a scene in episode 10 when when Tine asked Sarawat if he could play a scrub song in a show, and Sarawat said, "Well, I'm going to think about it, but if you let me kiss you on the cheek, then I would." And Tine said no, and Sarawat had to steal a kiss. And I mean, it's just a kiss, really. And I don't understand why. For some reason, and a lot of people share this sentiment of mine, from episode 10 until episode 13, you don't feel the love anymore. There was chemistry between Bright and Win, but the chemistry that we saw on screen wasn't the chemistry between Sarawat and Tine anymore, but the chemistry of real life Win Metawin and Bright Chivaree. Because I know, they have mentioned that because of filming this series, they became close as friends, and that's what you feel. Like, I understand, these are two straight men playing the part of two guys who fall in love. But towards the latter part, actually after season 10, you could still feel it, because like the cuddling scene and on the sofa, yeah, that one is okay. But episode 11 until the end, that was when it's becoming to be a bromance or a BFF thing as opposed to being a couple. And I think that is something that people were disappointed with. I know for a fact that I was very disappointed with the last episode. I really, really was. Because here you are, Sarawat declaring his love for Tine before he sang his song, the last song. And, this is for Tine, if you're here, you're listening, and so on and so on. There he was pouring his heart out. And then finally Tine came at just in front of the stage. So Tine walked there, and then Sarawat crouched down to talk to Tine and say, can you trust me again, and so on. And so basically, the ultimate end all there is that they got back together. You got back together. Can't you just at least hug? I mean, you're a couple. Some big drama happened in your life because of that misunderstanding about Pam. I mean, really, you just got back together. I mean, what, are you still embarrassed that it's public? I mean, Sarawat was declaring to the world who Tine was to him because he kept on posting Tine's picture on Instagram. You know what I mean? And there you were, and you didn't hug at least. And that's what I say. That's why I'm saying that the chemistry that I felt watching the last episode was more of, this is Bright and this is Win and this is our chemistry, as opposed to this is Tine and this is Sarawat and this is our love story. Didn't feel it at all. I'm so sorry. And I hope Together fans will forgive me for that one, for saying that. I know that there are some diehard Together fans there. Some of them even posted that now that Together is off the air and it's done, they won't be watching any BL series anymore, or that GMM TV should, if they don't come up with a season 2 for Together, they will do their best to petition for GMM TV. That's the TV broadcaster airing Together. They would petition it to close. I mean, really? But what I'm saying is this. This is just my opinion, and I have a huge respect for this show. I love this show. Remember, this is the show that helped me get through my depression and anxiety. So, I'm like that. It's like, we call it in Tagalog, utang na loob. That gratitude. I have that gratitude for Together, and that's why I'm making these observations, because even if I love it, there will always be flaws that people will observe, and I'm just a very objective person, and yeah. Another thing that I felt could have been better was the story arc of the other characters. I mean, this is what I feel is the weakness of some Thai BL series. You put a lot of cast members, you put a lot of characters in the story, and then you tend to forget who those characters are because the writer failed to develop those characters in the series. Now, let's go back. Together was actually based from a novel. I've read the novel. And these characters are there. But the thing there is, for a series, and they have to be very specific because there are only 12 or 13 episodes in a Thai BL series, except for Sotus, which was 14 or 15 episodes, I guess. So I felt that the other characters outside of Tine and Sarawat were not able to be given justification for their characters. For example, didn't you feel hanging with the side story of Fukong, Sarawat's brother, having feelings for Pimil? I mean, and they just fast forward it to that Scrub concert where Pimil was with Fukong already, and I would have wanted to see a little more progression from their characters. Also from the characters of Man and Pitayp, I would have wanted to see the progression there. I mean, I just felt that the writing was so consumed with the two, Tine and Sarawat, that the others became non-existent at certain points. That's just what but I think people will understand where we're coming from this one. Now, going back to chemistry, I felt that the other characters would have better chemistry than the chemistry that Sarawat and Tine had, especially in episode 13. For example, didn't you guys feel that there was more chemistry between Pimil and Tine in that hospital scene when Tine broke down and hugged Pimil? There was more feelings there than when Tine eventually got back with Sarawat, to be honest. There's more romantic chemistry between Pitayp and Man, and there was more romantic chemistry between Pimil and Fukong. And maybe that's the reason why they were not given ample airtime. Maybe. Because they'd rather focus it on Tine and Sarawat. But like what I said, towards the end, especially for episode 13, I think that the chemistry between Bright and Win as friends was more evident than when they were, the killing chemistry and romantic chemistry from episodes 1 to 9. I mean, especially towards the end. I mean, Sarawat's band won the band competition, and when it was announced, Sarawat was jumping and he even hugged his team. And yet when he turned to Tine, he didn't even hug Tine. Instead, he does this double high five, 2-arm high five. I mean, what was that? What was that? What was that? Disappointed there. I was really disappointed because I was expecting it to be different, because I've watched other BL series from GMM TV and they normally end with a blast. I mean, dark blue kiss, that underwater kiss, perfect. Soto's didn't end with a kissing scene, but there was, you could feel the love. Which then, I've been watching some of how they prepare BL series. Normally the characters go through a workshop. I'm not so sure if the workshop that they attended was that effective, now that we're looking at it. Huh? Let's move on to the next segment of this post. So what do I wish moving forward? One, I do hope that there is a second season for Together. I really hope. I heard from, I don't know if it was a rumor, that Bright does not want to do another BL series unless it was with Win. I get that. I think this is Bright's first BL series where he's the lead, because I looked at his profile and his body of work. he normally did support roles, but not necessarily this big. And that's why this is like a huge fame booster for him. I think everybody here got a boost of fame whatsoever because of this phenomenal BL series. Win is, like what I said, the biggest revelation in this series, because this is his first acting job, and then he looked very professional doing it. He was very effective in his acting. And all the rest, I think they did a good job in acting as well. But my wish list, season 2, please. Yes, I think it's nice now to look at what happens now to Tine and Sarawat after this. Like, and this is why some series in Thailand, they also get a second season. Sotus, when got Sotus S. Kiss Me Again got Dark Blue Kiss, and so on. Tarn Type is now doing their workshop for Tarn Type 2. So I hope that there's going to be a season 2 for Together. But I'm hoping that if ever there's going to be a season 2 for Together, it's not just the story of Tine and Sarawat, but this time I would like to see the progression of the other characters, Pimil and Fukong, and how that would be. Because another angle that I would like to see is this: if Pimil and Fukong are getting together and they're starting to like each other, I want to know now what kind of relationship would develop between Sarawat and Pimil. Remember, Pimil used to hit on Tine a lot, right? So I'm curious regarding that one. Man and Type. I want to see what's next for them. How will their relationship progress? Will they really have a relationship? That's another thing, right? Towards the end, you saw another friend of Sarawat, and then there was Pear. So what's about that? I mean, are they going to end up together? I'd like to see that progression if ever there's going to be a season 2. But if ever there's going to be a season 2, I feel that it should be an equal division of story arcs instead of just Sarawat and Tine. Because what else can you work on with Sarawat and Tine? Maybe another conflict. What, another person or so? Let's see. I also would like to have a different director for the second season, if ever there's going to be a second season. I'm sorry to the director. But I think it's time to, if ever there's going to be a second season, let's look at another director doing it. I feel that the director in this series was not able to really bring out the best acting chops and the best characterization from the actors. Yeah. Come to think of it, the director of Together was also the same director as Kiss Me Again. And then after Kiss Me Again ended and then Dark Blue Kiss started, it was a different director. And Dark Blue Kiss had a glossier production and a different type of directing, and it was, I feel, better directing than Kiss Me Again. So I'm not gonna zero in on the director, but maybe let's try to open our options for another director, please. Yeah. And what else? What else is my wish list? That if ever there's going to be a second season, that maybe they can use the same workshop that Tarn Type is using, so that they can build more chemistry, romantic chemistry, because that's something that, if this is a BL series, obviously it talks about that, and you have to give us chemistry. I just feel that towards the end of this, it wasn't it wasn't really what I was expecting. I'm sorry. But, but, but I hope, but I still want to thank the people behind Together because it was able to do a lot. As parting words in this vlog episode, this is just one of the things that I would like to say from a personal level. I would like to thank the makers, writers, the director, the actors of Together, because from a personal standpoint, my life in this quarantine and lockdown, it really helped me a lot. I was able to smile because and look at this whole lockdown with more positivity than negativity. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I would also like to thank the entire production of Together, because in that production that you thought was just for the for the audience in Thailand, you were able to capture the audience all over the world. Not just the Philippines, but all over the world. You were able to unite us every Friday to look and watch your episodes. So thank you very much. Thank you for being with us also. The same way you thank the audience for being with you and supporting you in all of the episodes, we also thank you for being with us in the time of this pandemic, being our escape from the reality of the pain and the challenges of this pandemic. Thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. I really am hoping for season 2, and I hope this video reaches GMM TV. Help me reach GMM TV, please. But thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. Do know that you have just won a fan here from the Philippines because of your work. Thanks, and thank you for watching my channel.